Alright, now we're getting into some heavy stuff here. I won't go into it into any great detail, but what I suspect is that all those personalities that you saw were manifestations of the mind control that was done on me as an infant. Fortunately, I had these creative venues to give expression to these things. In retrospect, I understand why people were freaking out when I would do those characters. Because, in a way, I was putting them in a trance, causing them to dissociate. Once I understood that I was being used in mind control programming, I delved more deeply into it. And there's a form of mind control called monarch, where altered personalities, through the trauma, which fragments the psyche, can be inserted. This was experimented with in Nazi Germany with Dr. Mengele. I never wanted to believe this. My conscious mind rejected it. This is too weird. This is too far out. But the evidence I've shown you from my infancy up to my teenage years indicates some very suspicious things that happened. You see the letters of the Greek alphabet. I'll just do one of these. Alpha is an alter personality, which has pronounced memory retention. And that is exactly what I have. I can remember the most minute details from the earliest phases of my life. Photographic memory. I even tested it on somebody just before I came to Valencia about some incident that happened many years ago, and I remembered every detail, and they were just so astonished at that. I attribute it to an alter. If you have studied mind control, particularly books like Fritz Springmeier's book, The Illuminati Formula, he talks about different layers of programming. It's inconceivable just how depraved these people are that do these things. On one of the hardest days of my life, that I could remember anyways, I had altitude sickness, diarrhea. I hated my life, and this beautiful soul, Nagababa, came up to me, handed me 3 violets, held my hand, and said, "Shiva, Shiva!" And I felt this energy course through me, up my arms, and down through my body. And I was able to walk approximately 15 kilometers at a very high altitude, thanks to his help. I've never recovered from that trip to India, because it put me in contact with something that I believe that we all have. And that is an indestructible part of our psyches that cannot be mind controlled, split into alters. And I attribute this trip to waking me up to another reality of dimensions that we can tap into that are so far beyond mind control. If you look at conspiracy books, they tend to be very confining, asphyxiating. It's wall-to-wall facts. And that's the typical paranoid mind, wanting to fill every space with facts because they can't tolerate openness. The word yoga means union. And what I have done with yoga and meditation is to unify the fragmented parts of my psyche. The work has not been easy. I've had to sacrifice quite a bit to do it. But I really have not had any choice in the matter. Through meditation, I encountered the walled-off areas of my psyche that contain the alter personalities. And through doing this, I was able to break down the walls and release these alters. I go into great detail in my book about the process of doing this, but I won't go into it in too great of a detail now. What I want to go into is the faith it's given me that even with something that's inhuman that was done to myself and millions of people, that a person, if they make the decision, can heal themselves and function in the world. I mean, statistically speaking, I should be like locked up in some, crazy ward. Here I am in Spain, bearing my soul, all of you, in beautiful Valencia. I believe we all have spiritual guides that when we're ready, they will show things. And that was certainly the case for myself. Because I never believed any of this stuff when I first got into the world of conspiracy. But weighing the evidence that I've shown you has made me realize that I could no longer ignore it. So I chose to do yoga and meditation. The Buddhists call that indestructible part of our minds the diamond mind. Diamonds are indestructible. We all have it, every one of us. And this is what I try to look at, even in the most despicable human being that I'm confronted with. I try to find that diamond mind buried under all their psychosis, pathology, inability to feel, to sympathize, to have compassion for another person. It's not easy. Try looking for the diamond mind of George W. Bush. I'm not spiritually advanced enough to see that. Prior to coming to Valencia, I'm not too far out for you, am I? I was meditating and I saw Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. I highly recommend reading their works because he talks about the supermind, which we can bring into our bodies and out into the world. And it's this very connection with supermind, with this super consciousness, that has enabled me to look at the horrible things that were done to me without losing my mind. As a result, I'm able to forgive people. And believe me, I'm trying to work on forgiving the perpetrators of this horrible experiment that was done on so many people. I'm trying to forgive my parents as well. And how I'm doing that is caretaking them. They are elderly. They've destroyed their minds with aspartame, the artificial sweetener I talked about earlier. I try to look through all the conditioning that my mother and father were subjected to in the 50s into that diamond mind. And I suggest you try that with whoever causes you problems in your life, whoever causes you the most suffering in your life, whether it's a personal friend or a politician, somebody you don't know. Look for that in them, because that will diffuse fear. It will get rid of fear.